So for Benedict, the truth in which love must play itself out in our contemporary world includes the fact that there continues to be staggering and scandalous degree of inequality in human development. That reality is due in part to a blindness to that reality, and in part a lack of realization and acceptance of our moral obligations for each other. But the Pope sees, I think, a deeper reason for this human failure, and he returns to it over and over again in this. For Benedict, the key is that we have fooled ourselves into thinking that we are self-sufficient. He uses that phrase over and over again. The key is that we fool ourselves into thinking that we are self-sufficient. Sometimes modern man, he says, is wrongly convinced that he is the sole author of himself, his life, and his society. This is that theme of interdependence that I mentioned when I was talking about what it means to be integral in our development. And he returns to this theme over and over again. We get focused on the truth that we do act in ways to contribute to our own development, but we forget or refuse to see the ways that our lives are so completely dependent on one another. We misunderstand gratuity, and the gratuity with which we are surrounded and which actually gives us life. Let me be clear about this. This is not simply saying that there are some people who are greedy, and that's the problem. Or that there are some people who are selfish, and that's the problem. Or even that there are some people who are kind of fundamentally self-interested, and that's the problem. No. For Benedict, this is a fundamental misunderstanding of ourselves. And it has implications not only at the personal, but at the social levels, but also at the structural levels of our societal decision-making. In particular, Benedict sees this sense of self-sufficiency as underlining what is our love affair with technical solutions to problems. We love technical solutions. We want to ask how we can solve a problem before we ask why there is the problem. And to find those technical solutions, we tend to limit our reading of the signs of the times, our analysis, to those parts of reality that fit our expertise. I see from this perspective, that's how I'm going to approach this. And we ignore other dimensions, including the ones I've just talked about, the moral dimension or the dimension that only the poor themselves see. And Benedict gives a variety of examples of this, from economics and politics and society and culture, to show how he really thinks this is structural. The best example is simply what we all talk about as materialism. Because materialism, almost by definition, is focusing on those things that we can control technically, which then becomes the goal of our activity, because that's what I can do. Benedict's predecessor, Pope John Paul II, used the term superdevelopment, and Benedict talks about it again, for the trap that we, wealthy and find ourselves in, driven by getting whatever is available instead of what is needful, and by having instead of being. Economics, about which I've done some work, is a powerful analysis. It's a powerful set of technical tools. But Benedict reminds us that even the market itself is fundamentally a relationship and not an equation. The importance of such human virtues as trust and honesty in the economy have become incredibly obvious, haven't they, over the last 18 months. The entire financial crisis, people will say, is fundamentally a lack of confidence and trust by bankers with bankers or financiers with financiers. He says, and this touches nicely at least the most basic or deterministic, if you will, characteristic of the neoclassical economic model. Development depends on seeing ourselves as a human family, not as a group of subjects who happen to live side by side.
So, that example of the way Benedict thinks this self-sufficiency idea is at the root of a problem, at least in economics. Politically, Benedict points out the power of ideologies, again, which are self-focused, highly technical, that cut human beings off from each other and provide a legitimation for the most horrible crimes against humanity we have ever seen. And Benedict is someone who's lived through those crimes. And in full disclosure, as I stand here as a clergyman, the fact that religion can and has become ideological and fundamentalistic at times has driven many of our intelligent and caring brothers and sisters to see religion as a horror and not as a grace. That's a challenge. Culturally, Benedict points to the tendency of globalization to impose, softly, but to impose nonetheless, one particular culture instead of values on the rest of the world. The other side critiques societies that are incapable or unwilling to learn from others. But again, these are rooted in this sense of self-sufficiency and technical control. What each of these and other examples that Benedict gives have in common is that they ultimately offend human dignity and limit human freedom. And human freedom, indeed liberation, interesting word that Benedict actually uses, is at the heart of integral development. Okay, so much for the critiques that Benedict sees in our world because of this fallacy of self-sufficiency. I said we'd talk about critiques, I also said we'd talk about hopes. So we'll talk about some of the hopes. What does Benedict suggest? Let me put it sort of this way. What would truth, in the sense of the practical world, the real world, what would truth lived in love look like for Benedict? Let me try to enumerate just a couple of things using those same categories, and I'll also try to give a bit of a reality check, showing that they are connected to others of goodwill. And I do that because, as Benedict reminds us, and this is a whole other talk that some people who are here actually could give better than I, but as Benedict reminds us, the demands of love do not contradict those of reason. He has spent most of his life trying to argue that faith and reason are allies, not enemies. So a couple of examples of the positive characteristics of Benedict's vision. For Benedict, Christian humanism, as opposed to materialism, is the driving force of human life. It is a focus on being, not having, a sense of the importance of the spiritual, the broad sense, the soulful, the fully human. That is the true fruit of love, the goodwill. Materialism, which beyond the narrow sense of consumerism and even in the broad philosophical sense simply does not fulfill us. And that's something that we see in many other traditions, religious and non-religious, who seek in our world, and we see it all around us, the search for the spiritual.